Hello fellow exiles, this is my Spark Archmage Stormweaver, an evolution of the Arc Stormweaver build from my previous video that transforms mapping into a relaxed, efficient clear fest while maintaining the same devastating boss deletion capability. This evolution replaces Arc's aiming demands with Spark's widespread damage for map clearing, letting you focus purely on positioning and movement while projectiles handle the elimination work. The result is both faster clear speeds and significantly reduced mental fatigue during extended mapping sessions. But this does require substantial investment. If you try to get everything ready all at once, it will definitely be costly. The core logic remains identical to our previous build. We stack maximum mana as our single scaling stat, using it for both offense and defense. Our massive mana pool feeds into Archmage for enormous damage scaling, while damage taken from mana before life converts that same mana pool into our primary defensive layer. I'm going to show you how we solve Spark's inherent damage and mobility limitations and create a mapping experience that justifies its premium cost over proven budget alternatives. If you enjoy detailed build analysis with honest assessments, please consider subscribing. Let's start with the trade-offs that define this upgrade path. The fundamental question is simple. Why choose Spark over our proven Arc foundation when Arc is effective and considerably cheaper? The answer comes down to sustained mapping comfort and player speed improvements. Spark damages enemies within its wide range, eliminating the need of aiming. The projectiles bounce around the battlefield for their full duration, creating wide area coverage that feels much safer than Arc's linear targeting requirement, especially during dense abyss encounters or when managing multiple threats simultaneously. However, Spark brings significant challenges that explain its higher investment requirement. First, Spark's damage is substantially lower than Arc's, considering Arc's easy access to Lightning Infusion for 200% more damage, and Stormweaver's Ascendancy doesn't provide considerable damage amplification for Spark. From a design perspective, GGG clearly doesn't intend Spark to serve as a standalone damage solution in 0.3. Second, casting Spark while moving imposes a movement speed penalty that reduces your speed to half of normal. This dramatically impacts mapping efficiency and exposes you to additional risk. Also, due to Spark's excessive performance in 0.1, GGG implemented a 0.66 second re-hit interval, meaning the same enemy can only be hit by Spark projectiles once every 0.66 seconds. Now let's look at how we deal with each of these problems. Rakyata's Flow Support gem transforms Spark from mediocre to viable by making hit damage calculations treat monster resistances as inverted. Monsters with high elemental resistances actually take more damage rather than less, making Spark effective against tough monsters throughout juiced maps. We also introduce critical hits as an additional multiplicative damage scaling source. This requires some critical investment to compensate for Spark's lower base damage, in addition to our existing mana stacking, dual shocking, and skill level scaling. To address the 0.66 second re-hit interval, we maximize projectile active time through extending skill effect duration via passive nodes and dual modifiers. For projectile effectiveness, we aim for projectile speed increases, so Spark projectiles reach enemies faster after casting and after bouncing back from terrain. The movement speed penalty requires considerable passive investment, targeting reduced movement speed penalty from using skills while moving clusters. Through some passive nodes, we reduce this penalty from 50% to manageable levels. Unlike our previous build, where Arc served as the primary mapping skill, this setup uses Arc in two specific ways that complement Spark's coverage. First, we socket Arc into Spellslinger that comes with a dueling wand. You cast Spark to build up Spellslinger energy. When sufficient energy accumulates, the Spellslinger icon lights up, indicating it's ready to fire. You manually press the Spellslinger button to instantly release up to 4 arcs simultaneously, without their normal cast animation or movement speed penalty. To together with Sion's Temper Support gem, creating an Arc Nova with dozens of projectiles for off-screen clearing. Second, we use manually cast Arc for boss shock application. We support it with Overcharge and Commiserate. Overcharge provides 50% increased shock magnitude, while Commiserate counters Overcharge's self-shocking downside. Combined with Arc's inherent 50% more shock magnitude, and Voltaic Mark providing 45% increased shock magnitude, we achieve 100% dual shock debuffs on bosses, with minimal passive investment. This approach requires only 69% shock magnitude on tooltip to guarantee 100% shock magnitude on bosses under Voltaic Mark's enhancement. This frees up resources previously dedicated to shock magnitude stacking, including the Darkness Enthroned belt and shock magnitude runes on gloves. With our offensive systems handled, let's look at how we stay alive with the same mana we use for damage. Our defensive approach centers on damage is taken from mana before life modifiers, using our mana stacking for both offense and defense simultaneously. Now, you might wonder why we don't just go full mana tanking with 100% conversion or mind over matter. Here's the key insight. Partial conversion gives identical one-shot max hit threshold, while allowing both our flasks and inherent regeneration for recovery. When we go 100% mana tanking, we completely waste our life flask resources, while gaining no additional survivability threshold. Mind over matter makes this even worse with its 50% less mana recovery rate penalty, essentially crippling our primary strength. Match your conversion percentage to your mana to life ratio, using the formula here. For example, with 5000 mana and 1200 life, target 81% conversion. With 4000 mana and 1200 life, aim for around 77%. We reach target numbers through Stormweaver's Force of Will Ascendancy, providing 20%, passive clusters providing 24%, armor, base types or suffixes providing 10% to 20%, and Great Wolf's Rune of Willpower providing 10% each. Curses provide additional defensive utility. Temporal Chains, for example, with my level 26 setup combined with passives, slows monsters by up to 135%. Although the effect is reduced against powerful monsters, it remains highly effective. Try casting Temporal Chains when encountering Abyss Pits in maps. It greatly improves character survival when Abyss monsters emerge. The gear requirements for this build represent endgame grade investment. All modifiers I'll mention are recommended for the build to function at its intended performance level. Using budget gear might result in disappointment, which explains why this build is costly. Our wand requires a dueling wand base due to Spellslinger. The most important modifier is +5 to levels of all lightning spell skills. The wand must have increased spell damage or increased lightning damage, ideally both, and with one gain damage as extra lightning damage modifier being optimal. Additional required modifiers include cast speed, critical hit chance for spell, or maximum mana. For weapon runes, +1 level to all spell skills is optimal. Also look for those base corrupted with 2 sockets, or even 3. The focus shares identical priorities, +3 to levels of all spell skills, and increased spell damage or lightning damage are mandatory. Additional required modifiers include critical hit chance for spell, cast speed, or maximum mana. The second weapon set uses a chiming staff for Sigil of Power. Cast speed is helpful, and higher item levels provide better sigil levels. Amulets must have +3 levels to all spell skills. Additional modifiers include Spirit when possible, cast speed, and critical hit chance. Both amulets and rings require increased maximum mana and percentage increased maximum mana modifiers. Find resistances, cast speed, and mana regeneration rate on rings as needed. We need 149 total spirit. Characters have 100 base spirit, so we need 49 from gear. If unavailable on amulet, find them on body armor. Armor should ideally use the Feathered Raiment base for its inherent, up to 10%, damage is taken from Mana Before Life mod. Look for resistances and high energy shield. For armor runes, we need Great Wolf's Rune of Willpower, providing 10% damage taken from Mana Before Life each, so corrupted armor with 3 or even 4 rune sockets is ideal. All defensive gear should also prioritize high energy shield and resistances. Helmet, gloves, and boots should ideally be corrupted with 3 sockets. Helmet sockets contain 3% maximum mana soul cores. I have Chaos Resistance soul cores on the boot sockets, though movement speed runes are optimal if you can afford boots with high movement speed, 100% increased effect of socketed items, and 3 sockets. Glove sockets contain 1 cast speed rune and 1 Kurgo's Gaze. Combined with gloves having 100% increased effect of socketed items modifier, we gain 16% cast speed and 80% increased effect of Arcane Surge. For belts, we choose Ingenuity Belt to provide both rings with additional bonuses. The passive tree of this build differs substantially from our Arc setup due to critical hit integration and movement penalty requirements. The PoB is in description. Note that this targets uber late endgame performance. You should reach level 92 and obtain Rakiata's Flow with quality gear before implementing this setup. My character currently sits at level 96. For Ascendancy nodes, we take Constant Gale and Force of Will, as well as Strike Twice. The remaining 2 nodes offer limited value. I chose Refracted Infusion to occasionally gain Cold Infusion for Spark Enhancement, though this remains optional. Starting here, we take Critical Overload and Sudden Escalation for critical hit chance, plus the Jewel socket. This holds a Heart of the Well diamond, providing 2% mana recovery on kill and 15% increased skill effect duration for Spark to remain longer in the field, plus 21% chance for lightning damage hits to be lucky for more frequent high damage rolls. Then we take the Efficient Casting Cluster for 36% total mana cost efficiency, crucial for sustain. Next, Critical Exploit for critical hit chance, and Zone of Control Cluster on Weapon Set 2 for curse bonuses. Going up, we allocate Eldritch Battery to convert all base energy shield to mana, essential for reaching high maximum mana. We counter the doubled mana cost with high mana regeneration and cost reduction. In the nearby Jewel socket, we have a From Nothing diamond for Eldritch Battery, letting us access these nodes without pathing. Take Arcane Intensity and Raw Mana, then Controlled Magic and Lightning Quick on Weapon Set 1. Beneath the circle, we grab 3 small Curse Magnitude nodes on Weapon Set 2. As a reminder, Weapon Set 1 handles damage, Set 2 handles curses and buffs. Up here, take Turn the Clock Forward and Preservation, both benefiting Spark. Also take Ingenuity. Master of Hexes and Lingering Whispers go on Weapon Set 2. We access Pure Power through Amulet Anointment. Back this way, Careful Assassin on Weapon Set 1 and the Fated End Cluster on Set 2. Then, allocate the Lucidity Cluster for 16% total damage taken from Mana Before Life. This Jewel socket holds a controlled metamorphosis with Large Ring, giving access to several important nodes. We allocate Spaghettification for movement speed and attributes, Chakra of Thought for 8% mana tanking, for the Jugular for critical hit bonus, and Conservative Casting for additional mana cost efficiency. The small node here goes on Weapon Set 2. Then grab Harmonic Generator and Kite Runner. Take Wild Storm on Weapon Set 1 for 15% more maximum lightning damage. The Sapphire here provides 2% mana recovery on kill and 26% increased shock magnitude. Then, Heart Stopping and Heart Breaking for crits, and the Unhindered cluster on weapon set 1 for 20% total reduced movement speed penalty while casting. Down here, Frazzled cluster for shock magnitude, Freedom of Movement for another 10% reduced movement speed penalty, and Cooked for critical damage bonus, all on weapon set 1. This Sapphire provides critical hit chance and 27% increased shock magnitude. We are almost done. Take Acceleration for movement speed and skill speed. The final jewel provides critical hit chance, 26% shock magnitude, and 2% increased intelligence. Finally, the Spray and Pray cluster for 22% total reduced movement speed penalty while casting. By the way, Gem Enthusiast and Crystallized immunities are also great for the build, but we just don't have efficient way to reach them yet. Might have to wait for a good Megalomaniac diamond. The Light on Your Feet and Momentum clusters are also worth taking through a From Nothing diamond for Valpact, if your goal is to get absolutely no movement speed penalty while casting. The pathing represents my personal optimization and can be adjusted based on your gear and preferences. Now, let's take a look at the support gem links. Spark serves as our main clearing skill. First, we link Rakyata's Flow, which treats enemies' elemental resistance as inverted and is essential for Spark's viability. Projectile Acceleration 3 provides 40% more projectile speed and allows projectile speed modifiers to also apply to Spark's damage. Ricochet 3 allows Spark to pierce all targets with no damage loss, crucial for dense monster packs. Zenith 2 provides 30% more damage and 25% mana cost recoup. Efficiency 2 reduces mana costs by 40%, essential for sustainable casting. Arc is for shock application. We support it with Overcharge, providing 50% increased shock magnitude, and Commiserate to counter Overcharge's self-shocking downside. We also socket Arc in Spellslinger with Sione's Temper, which makes Arc fire additional projectiles in a circle. Feels great during mapping. Lightning Conduit remains our boss deletion tool. Other skill links won't be mentioned one by one. Please refer to the tables here or the POB for details. This build delivers substantially improved mapping efficiency compared to the previous Arc setup. We no longer need to aim, just hold Spark and walk to clear maps, occasionally pressing Spellslinger to release Arc Nova for off-screen clearing. Although we sacrificed some convenience, since Lightning Conduit now needs manual casting, this is justified since this league's main profits come from mapping rather than killing pinnacle bosses. The new bossing rotation is still straightforward. Cast Sigil of Power, then Spark several times to build Sigil stacks. Cast Elemental Weakness when the boss becomes attackable, cast Voltaic Mark and Arc a few times until you see dual 100% shock debuffs applied. Cast Elemental Weakness again to enable Lightning Conduit's Rising Tempest support for 36% more damage. Use Mana Tempest to empower yourself and immediately cast Lightning Conduit to delete the boss. Honestly, if your gear is sufficient, except for Uber Arbiter and Citadel bosses, most bosses don't require this many steps. Just Voltaic Mark and Arc them for dual shock debuffs, then Lightning Conduit, and you delete them. Spark as a wide area damaging skill makes us safer during mapping. When encountering large Abyss monster gatherings, cast Temporal Chains and keep moving while Spark handles elimination. This might represent Stormweaver's optimal form under the self-casting archetype, guaranteeing efficient mapping while easily completing all endgame content, including highest difficulty Simulacrum. The disadvantages remain clear. Our stun and ailment thresholds are still very low, making us vulnerable to crowd control and elemental ailments. We rely on our damage, curses, charms, and positioning to handle dangerous situations. Choosing Spark inevitably means higher build cost. I recommend gradual progression. Get Rakiata's flow and decent gear before switching to Spark focused. If you're starting Stormweaver, I would recommend using Arc as your main damage skill, like the build from my previous video. After covering this Stormweaver build, I'm planning to explore some other ascendancies I've been curious about. I've already leveled an Infernalist, a Warbringer, and a Chayula Monk, and I'm excited to see what unique mechanics and build possibilities each one offers. This isn't me moving away from Stormweaver permanently though. I'll definitely be returning to it once I have some new ideas in the future. But for now, if I discover something interesting with these other classes that's worth sharing, you'll see a build. No particular order planned, so stay tuned to see which one I tackle first. Drop a comment and share with me what you think. Or, if you have any questions regarding this build or gear choices, please let me know. If you found this video informative, please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.